Fliegers are some of the most iconic and recognizable watches in the watch world. With heritage dating back to the Second World War, these historic pilot watches deserve so much more love than we give them. If divers were the tool watches of the sea, then the skies belonged to the Fliegers. You see, aerial warfare played a huge role in the Second World War, and pilots were largely looked up to due to the inevitable aura of flying in the skies at the time, not to mention the aerial maneuvers and dogfighting. In Germany, they were known as the Luftwaffe, which is still a term used today to refer to the German Air Force. In the 30s, the German Luftwaffe commissioned the design and production of highly legible timepieces. Timepieces that would ultimately aid pilots in a variety of key tasks such as flight duration calculation and squadron synchronization. They were also 55mm in size, with an all-dial case so that any pilot would be able to read the time while being upside down in the air, and potentially being shot at. It was a tool watch through and through, and one that would have decided fates. There were 5 manufacturers that were commissioned to produce these so-called Fliegers, which by the way stands for flyer in German. Out of the 5 companies, 4 were German, those being Wempe, Stover, Lange & and Laco. The 5th was a Swiss watchmaker known as International Watch Company, which we all know as IWC today. Except for Lange, who is now into high-end luxury, Wempe, Stover, Laco, and IWC are very much still sticking to their roots and still produces Flieger-style watches till this day. But the thing with Fliegers nowadays is that they pretty much all look the same. So why is it that the Laco Karlsruhe Pro in 37 is my favorite, and the Flieger that I believe offers the most value for money? You wouldn't be out of order to say Fliegers aren't as versatile as your typical dive-style watch. Fliegers are bold, pragmatic, and are anything but a piece of jewelry, although they're a lot more wearable than you might think. On the supplied leather strap, which is very soft, supple, and substantial, the Karlsruhe pairs well with a more understated outfit. Throw in some brown boots, doesn't have to be leather. Even casual brown sneakers can be a good pairing with the traditional Flieger and leather strap pairing. But I'll be honest, I'm not much of a leather strap person, and most certainly not Flieger style leather straps. They're a little too heavy duty for me. One of my personal favorite ways of wearing the Laco Karlsruhe is on a Barton Elite silicone strap. Because of the no-nonsense toolish nature of the dial, I find pairing it on a black rubber strap gives the Flieger a more everyday land tool watch, as opposed to something you wear with a full pilot suit. With a black t-shirt and black pants, you get this stealthy outfit that works really well with a Flieger. That's not to say you can't wear it casually, say with some sweatpants and a sweater. Karlsruhe doesn't look entirely out of place with a more laid-back environment, still maintaining a kind of sporty nature, albeit you'll most definitely want to swap out the leather strap. However, I'll be honest, I don't find myself wearing it very much when I have on a comfy, casual outfit. It just doesn't suit the vibe. It's a little too much of a tool watch, and it just doesn't feel right on a lazy day. I find the Karlsruhe to really shine when I'm after a more stealthy vibe with an all-black outfit. It also works really well with a more utility-style jacket or even a bomber jacket. I don't know about you, but sometimes a watch can make you feel like you're the main character in an action movie, and the Laco does a good job of reminding you why it even exists in the first place. The dial of a Flieger is what makes it instantly recognizable. They're bold, loud, and doesn't hide the fact that their only job is to communicate the time to you, while on the fact that there are only really 2 types of dial configurations. The Type A configuration was the original Flieger dial, with a triangle and a 12 in between the 2 dots to ensure pilots could identify the 12 o'clock regardless of their viewing conditions. Big, bold, and loom Arabic numerals lined up the rest of the dial, which meant that legibility would never become an issue. In 1941, the Type B was born, with the addition of an outer scale with 5-minute increments from 0 to 60 to keep track of both minutes and seconds. The Type B shrunk the 1 to 12 ring to the inner dial for keeping track of hours. Due to its more unique design, the Type B configuration is widely recognized as the more iconic Flieger of the pair. The Laco Karlsruhe features a Type B matte black dial, which is as close to a perfect copy of the original Type B in the 40s. The outer dial is big and bold, ensuring you'll always be able to identify the time regardless of the viewing angle or viewing condition. The inner dial sticks to tradition, which is used to track the hours. Granted, I don't exactly use it for its intended purposes. I must say the dial design is uniquely a Flieger, and it definitely makes telling time extremely straightforward. The numbers and indices are filled with C3 superluminova, which weirdly enough is only applied on every other numeral on the outer dial. The Karlsruhe does glow well in the dark, and the lume is decently long-lasting. The handset is thermally blued and is packed generously with C3 superluminova. I would have expected every single numeral to be lit up. After all, there's no such thing as too much lume, so I am a little disappointed, but nothing that ruins the watch for me. And look, there's nothing inherently exciting about a Type B Flieger Dial. They're all printed with the same exact font and finished to a universal standard: black, matte, Arabic numerals. With the Karlsruhe, you get the added benefit of having a historic brand printed on the dial. While Laco's creativity on the dial was certainly stifled by the need to stick to traditions, the same can't be said for the case. One of the main reasons why I've never had much luck with Fliegers in the past is because I've never gelled with the case. Most of them either were too big because of the dial case diameter, or they had straight shooting lugs. The Karlsruhe features a 37mm case diameter with a thickness of just under 11mm, and an extremely comfortable lug-to-lug of 45.5mm. It's also really light, weighing at only 66 grams on the supplied leather strap. It's no secret why this one is a fantastic option for those with smaller wrists. The lugs on the Karlsruhe isn't your typical straight shooting Flieger lugs. They angle down nicely, and when paired with a supple strap will hug even the skinniest of wrists and wear comfortably. While the overall shape of the lugs are rounded, the finishing still maintains a level of sharpness that a tool watch inherently possesses. The rest of the case follows a typical bezel, mid-case, and caseback combination. The bezel is brushed and takes up no more than a few millimeters of real estate. The crystal is double-domed sapphire with AR coating on one side, plenty of visibility under direct sunlight. And sticking to tradition, Fliegers are typically all-dial watches to maximize the legibility in turbulent scenarios. We should consider ourselves lucky nowadays, as they were all made with 55mm case diameters in the past. The mid-case has an extremely slim profile and has the optional engraving of the string of text FL23883, which I have opted for. It's an additional nod to the historical significance of the Fliegers. The FL stands for flight, 23 stands for monitoring flight, and 883 was assigned by the German Testing Office for Aeronautics. The caseback continues the trend of customizability with the option for an enclosed or sapphire caseback. Packed within is the Sellita SW200 Elaborate Grade Movement, which can be upgraded with decorative blue screws, which I have done in mine. It's a good contrast going from the purely pragmatic tool dial to an aesthetic-focused caseback. And of course, part and parcel of every Flieger is the onion crown at the 3 o'clock, which exists not so much for aesthetic reasons, but instead to allow pilot wearing thick gloves to operate the movement. And here's where Laco's really made a difference. The crown is screwed down with 200 meters of water resistance. Now that's not something you see every day in a pilot's watch, especially a Flieger. On my 6-inch wrist, the Karlsruhe wears really comfortably. Visually, I was initially afraid that it would look large due to the all-dial case of a Flieger, but I'm pleased to say that 37mm case diameter has kept the visual wearing experience subtle and understated. More importantly, it keeps my small wrist happy. On wrist, it's also extremely thin, which makes it easy to put on and forget you're even wearing a watch at all. After all, it's only around 66 grams on the supplied leather strap. The thinness also removes any concerns for sliding underneath sleeves, whether it be a jacket or a shirt. Overall, the wearing experience at 37mm is fantastic for those with smaller wrists, and I can comfortably say it's one of the more skinny wrist-friendly Fliegers out in the market. And especially at this price point, it's hard to find a suitable competition. Now, Fliegers are historically worn on unique leather straps with rivets directly underneath the lugs, and it's designed that way to prevent the watch from rotating, slipping, or falling out of the pilot's wrist. While I appreciate the historical significance of the leather strap, I myself am not much of a fan of Flieger-style leather straps. One of my favorite ways to wear the Karlsruhe is on a black rubber strap, which transitioned the Karlsruhe from a traditional-looking Flieger to a modern tool watch. By pairing the matte black dial and the rather utilitarian positioning of numerals, a black rubber strap gives off a modern stealthy vibe that really works for me. Another way of dressing up the Karlsruhe is NATO straps. You can opt for a black NATO strap, which turns it from a pilot's watch to lean more towards a field watch. I find pairing NATO straps with tool watches a great way to make it a little less serious and turn it into a casual wearing experience. Alternatively, if you like to give it a slight pop of color while maintaining the aesthetics integrity of a Flieger, you can try a beige NATO strap, which makes it a little more fun and outgoing but still retains the elements of a tool watch. So fear not, while the design is rather practical, the Karlsruhe, or most Type B Fliegers for that matter, are strap monsters, and you'll definitely find a pairing that suits, if not the original supplied leather strap. The Karlsruhe runs for at least $1,000 for the base model without any modifications and upgrades. That's not cheap, but it's also one of the better value Fliegers I've seen, and there's two main reasons. The first is the size and wearability. At 37mm and 200 meters of water resistance, it is uniquely its own offering in the Flieger market. The closest competitor is the Stova's Flieger Classic in 36mm, but it only has 50 meters of water resistance and no screw down crown. In comparison, the Karlsruhe is a watch you can take to the beach, get wet, and if you fancy, dive into deep waters as you would a diver. Not to mention the Stova is 250 euros more expensive at their base model. So the fact that Laco can offer the same level of finishing and design at a lower price point with better specs, that's hard to argue against. And the second is brand heritage. When it comes to Fliegers, you can go on AliExpress and get an unbranded Flieger for $50. And guess what? It will likely look exactly the same as the Laco for an absolute fraction of the price. There's no beating that, but there's no history there. No story, just a mindless mass-produced lookalike designed to exploit the fact that all Fliegers look the same. If you value those two things, quality and history, then the Karlsruhe is arguably one of the best options for those with smaller wrists. And if you have bigger wrist, Laco does the Karlsruhe in 40 and 43mm. Seriously, how good is that? So if you've been interested in a Flieger and you're past the point of extremely affordable AliExpress lookalikes, or your Seikos and your Orients, then why not give the Karlsruhe a shot? It is a good starting point to venture into the world of heritage Fliegers, perhaps even eventually working your way up towards an IWC. Whenever I have the Karlsruhe on wrist, I can't help but feel grateful. Grateful that I've been able to experience a watch with such a deep history, with the modern comforts that have been given to me. Knowing full well that less than 100 years ago, those who were strapping on the same Flieger on their wrist weren't sitting comfortably on a desk ready to clock out at 5 every day. And I suppose therein lies the beauty of our hobby. It's not just about the bling, the glitz, and the glamour. Watches like the Laco Karlsruhe reminds us that there is so much more than just feats of mechanical engineering packed within a timepiece, and that watches do so much more than ultimately just tell the time. Catch you on the next one.